public comment or suggestions at this point? I think we'll be hearing from county staff and others during the discussion. Public hearing at this point? Okay, hearing none. We'll go on to the main event, which is discussion and possible action regarding the opening of the Wausau pools at phase 3 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan. And we learned about that as well. And anybody else?
I guess I'll talk now. Hopefully these will come on pretty soon. So when we did the agenda was put out last week Wednesday before the Supreme Court decision on, that's why it says the Badger Bounce Back Plan. We understand that that plan is not available or not part of this plan anymore. We'll keep working on the microphones. But so where this was at and why this is being brought forward is we've been working our staff has been working very closely with all the regional pool directors. So the city of Wausau, Weston, Rothschild, Schofield, Stevens Point, Merrill, Wisconsin Rapids, and Marshfield. We've been talking about this for a couple of weeks, basically, since our last meeting, as well as before that. All the professionals, even in the state, were talking about pools and what we were going to do with pools for the summer. So as a region, we thought we should talk and try to work together on having a similar message. Working on having... Okay, here we go. Okay, so as I mentioned, the agenda says Badger Bounce Back Plan. We know that's no longer in play. So where this came from, as I was saying, is we're working with all regional pool directors, Weston, Rothschild, Schofield, Marshfield, Stevens Point, Merrill, Wisconsin Rapids. I feel like I forgot somebody now in my repeating it. Marathon was also on the call. So we thought of working as a team to figure out a regional plan, because what we do here in Wausau could affect what happens in Weston, Rothschild, Schofield, even as far as Stevens Point, Merrill. What they do also could affect our pools as well. And we wanted to have a regional message. So before this came about, we were, as well as many people across the state, were at the plan to open the pools when we hit that phase 3 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan, meaning that we could open up safely with really no limits on the number of people that could come into the pool. If we reduce the number of people in the pool, there's a lot of logistics and a lot more costs that go with that, with additional staffing that's needed, and we can get into that in a little bit. So with that, the other idea was that we needed to know from the health department if we were into phase 3 by June 15th, so that we could properly get the pools up and running, so that we would open no later than July 1st. If we don't open by or around the 4th of July, it really doesn't pay to be open from a financial standpoint, and we may not have enough staff to keep around for the remaining 6 weeks that we would be open for the summer, or 5 weeks, depending upon which pool it is. So we called this meeting today because every other community except for Weston had a meeting with their committee and made that direction that we would wait till phase 3 to open. Weston's meeting is tonight following this one. So little did we know that when we set this meeting, then the Supreme Court decision came in on Wednesday, and that changed that there is no Badger Bounce Back Plan. So with that, we still need to have this meeting, however, because even though there's no particular stay-at-home order or a Badger Bounce Back Plan, the virus isn't gone. There are still concerns with it. There are still regulations that we need to follow. There's recommendations. So tonight we have Dale Grosskurtz here from the Marathon County Health Department to help us walk through where we are sitting right now in Marathon County, what are some of the recommendations coming forward with how we run our facilities. Tonight we're specifically talking about pools, and how we should move forward. We have till 5:15 tonight, and then there is a meeting. So this needs to be, we need to come to a decision tonight so that we know how to move forward with staffing and work with all the other regional pools as well. Rothschild Schofield called a special meeting tonight. Also, they're meeting at 5. Weston's meeting at 6, so we're trying to all kind of do this together. With that said, I want to preface this by, I can give an update on the playgrounds at the very end, because I know that's been a topic out there, but also to anybody that's watching or understanding is that our department is the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. Parks and playgrounds and pools, this is what we do. This is our passion. This is what we live for, and this is what we strive to give to our community to use. So it is not at all a easy decision that we have to make when we're talking about any of these facilities, but we have to also follow the guidance of the professionals who are following what this pandemic means to Wisconsin and to Marathon County. And we can run, and do the Parks and Recreation stuff, but we need to listen to our health counterparts to look at how we should run our program safely. So by all means, Dale, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we can go from there.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to be referring to as I speak is, and I believe it's in your packet, it's the entertainment and amusement information, and I'll just try and explain the parts that I'm at as I go through. So turning over into page 2, just the first part that I'll start off with, it's coming, the last paragraph of the introduction. Keeping employees and customers safe is the #1 priority for all businesses. And whether you look at the Parks Department or the pools as a business or not, it's still a #1 priority. And the next part of that paragraph that I noted for myself is simply posting signage isn't going to be enough. People need to be reminded. And we're talking, for the most part, we're talking about kids who need more reminders, it seems. The first column on the left talks about employee health and hygiene, and what we've been advising all businesses is that they work with their employees and make sure they're doing wellness checks, asking if they're, any one of them are having symptoms associated with COVID, or somebody in their household, or someone they've had contact with. That's important to try to prevent the spread farther. Cleaning and disinfecting, I pulled that out. The second bullet speaks of rides or amusements, and I'm thinking of the play features that are in a lot of the municipal pools. Those are places, kids are all over those. So those would be an area that probably wouldn't be a good idea to have open just because it's going to have so much contact. Flipping the page over to page 3, and the 4th bullet down on the left-hand side talks about attractions of shared equipment, and that speaks again of the play features. But even if you're trying to go up on the water slides, you're going to be using, kids and adults will be using handrails to go up, and that's another constant contact feature that, again, should be sanitized. If you're going to have the restaurant portion of those pools open, there's going to be places where people eat, the counter where they come up and lean to place their order, and of those sorts of things. And just other surfaces that kids play with at that. What would it be, 7th bullet down, that's specific to swimming pools and water parks, staff monitoring the table and chair usage, lounge chairs I think of are often there. Customer gets up, leaves, somebody's got to go over and wipe that down, clean it down, because you're not really sure if they maybe have left anything, coughed into their hand, now touch the surface, and the next customer comes in and uses it. I'm going to flip pages around to page 4 now. Just customer health and safety, and we're just going to go down a few of the first bullet points. Capacity is going to have to be reduced at the pools. There just isn't a way to try to maintain 6-foot spacing even if you had kids that weren't running around. It's just the capacity of the pools, and I'm not sure what that is, but that'll get us down to probably something that might be manageable. And then if that's the case, a plan for how to deal with the customers who are coming to use the pool. Maybe that'll have to be by appointment, but it could be challenging. And even what we've advised or had required of retail establishments was having markings where's the 6-foot spacing? I see it at the retail stores that I go to when you're waiting in line at the checkout. They've got it marked out. Third bullet down is just saying, the big one. This is the one that's making the difference, is maintaining the 6-foot social distancing between individuals not in the same household. That can be, it's a challenge everywhere, and particularly I think can be a challenge at the pools. I just mentioned the next section, stickers, arrows, marks on the floor that indicate where, as people come to the pool and are registering or coming in, they would be spaced apart or while waiting. Going towards the bottom of that column on customer health and safety, just the second bullet up speaks about attendants have to ensure that the tables and chairs are an adequate distance apart. So even the lounge chairs, signage and just advising people, if you're not in the same household, spread out. The last one at the bottom on the left, installing sanitizing stations. Parks Department would need to provide a number of stations where people can easily hand sanitize if they do, child coughs into their hands, okay, come on over here, let's clean up a little bit, or before eating and such. The last bullet in the second column at the top, above the word programmed event guidelines, it's just equipment should be secured. Probably won't have the same equipment available for playing. I don't know if there are items that the Parks Department provides, balls or anything like that, and if not, that's okay, but sharing items back and forth, people will bring them.
We do supply, though, the rescue tubes for the lifeguards, so that's a challenge. Everybody would have to have their own, or they'd have to be sanitized in between each person, so.
Or a few extras so that if somebody is covering breaks and they're switching out, that they switch out with a new one and clean so that it rotates through. A good point. The last page that I'm turning to is page 5, and this is specific again for swimming pools and water attractions. Second bullet down speaks about each licensed public pool or water attraction facility must develop and follow a safety plan that includes enhanced cleaning and sanitizing of surfaces, employee health and hygiene, and ensuring that the pool or water attraction is properly operated with appropriate disinfectant levels. Now, the Parks Department has a very good program. The municipal pools they have staff who are well-trained and who monitor that closely. So the disinfectant levels is not something that I'm overly concerned about. It's the other surfaces and the contacts that can occur and the separation. They recommend in here that each facility have a designated person to ensure that guidelines and regulations are followed. That's going to be a challenging role for somebody to deal with all the adults or the kids when that's going on. Probably more than one person doing that. Can have an attendant or other staff member perform the duties as long as the facility is otherwise staffed. Cannot have lifeguards having to turn around and watch what's going on around the deck when they're focused on the water. Those were the main points that I wanted to just highlight. There's clearly other stuff that's identified in here as recommendations, and these are recommendations. It's not the law. But we are saying that if in an effort to control the spread, that's what we're hoping for. I can say, I spoke with Jamie just briefly about this earlier today. Last week when we started at the health department, we had about 22 cases in the county, and now we're up to 33 as of today. So in a week, we've gotten 10 more. It's out there in our community. You may have seen in the news, the nursing home employee. That person picked it up from someplace, probably not a resident. But so I'll stop and I can entertain questions or.
Are you saying, Dale, that if we would choose to go ahead, these are the recommendations that you would have us implement?
This is what their recommendations similar to this for other entities or businesses. This is what we have. We would, this is the best that we've got for guidance on how to open. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see the mayor's hand.
My question is, so I know we don't have the Badger Bounce Back Plan or Phase 3. However, is it possible that you could guide us, like, this is like phase 3 of the Badger Bounce Back Plan because it seems like that's the scientific reasoning? Like, would you be able to offer us guidance, like, yep, here's where we are?
Badger Bounce Back was based on being able to hit certain thresholds, and we weren't quite there to move out of Safer at Home into Phase 1, and then we would be in Phase 2 for a length of time. I think it's, for me anyway, a little would be premature to say that we're at that, anywhere near that phase. We actually aren't sure when we could hit Phase 3. It's a matter of how much testing gets done in our area. And when referencing the 10 cases increase, in our area, it's clearly present. We're not seeing a decline in cases.
So if you have the data, would you be able to make that assertion at some point? Like, do you feel like if you had access to the right data, you'd feel comfortable?
Me personally,
Or
no,
Joan.
but we would look at, working with experts who could analyze it and say, yep, I think we're at a
Okay.
point where we would have been. Perhaps we can do that, but gosh, that's out of ways. We
Sure.
really were thinking that when I hear about events that are being canceled to the end of July, saying that's probably not a real bad idea. And for people who are taking something that was in June and thinking, well, maybe we could do that in August, it's okay to have a backup plan, but just so that everybody understands, that may not happen either. There were so many clearly unknowns, and with the increase in testing, now we're identifying more cases. And it has to be said, I believe it's still this common statistic, about 25% of the individuals out there don't show signs or symptoms, but are able to carry it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Mr. Killian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Mr. Grosskreutz. I just have a follow-up question based on a statement just a few moments ago. You said this is not the point, and it would really be premature. If we were to have to make the decision of, say, opening today, the health department's recommendation based on those earlier statements, am I interpreting that correctly? The recommendation would be to not open if...
Right, that would be it. It would be very difficult to say that, given the cases that we've got and the difficulty that I envision with a pool. It's been a number of years since I've had my kids at pools. They're all bigger than me now. But it's a free-for-all fun fest, which is what pools are supposed to be. Kids getting in the water, splashing, releasing a lot of energy, and having a great time. It's hard to imagine managing 100 of those kids. And so I just don't see it as a good option. They're exerting a tremendous amount of energy, breathing heavy in one another's faces, spurting water. The kids will be kids. So it's just, I couldn't feel like it was a good choice to make.
Thank you for that information. I just have a few brief questions about this virus specifically. I've heard this term called R-naught value, just how many people it transmits to for each person. Like, I've heard that the flu, the seasonal flu, if one person has it, it may transmit to one additional person. Is there any going kind of knowledge or awareness on what that value might be if left unchecked without social distancing and so forth? Just on average, how many people would that be likely to transmit to?
I'm not working in the area that deals with a lot of
Sure.
that and the people contact. I generally had heard a rule of thumb for everybody that we get that tests positive, though, we probably have 20 contacts
Okay.
to tracing, just to monitor, how are you doing? Are you feeling all right yet today? And those sorts of things. So I'm not sure I can specifically answer your question as well as I'd like to, but.
No, that's helpful, thank you. And then one last question, and I know this is just emerging, and there's a lot of facets to this whole thing, so if it's not one that you focused on, no problem at all. I've read in the news and also in the Lancet medical journal that there's been kind of a Kawasaki-like syndrome in children, that they're starting to maybe correlate to this virus. And I know it's early on, but is that an emerging concern potentially among children, that this could have symptoms and consequences that we may not fully grasp yet?
Yeah, I think I've seen a little bit of the same thing, and again, it's out of my element, but it's certainly a concern when you're dealing with young children, and it was this inflammation of some sort that I'd
Yes,
seen. But I'm not the best person to speak to it, but I would say that we're watching it. And
Okay.
the state health officials are as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Watson?
I was wondering, is the distance between people during physical exertion, does it have to be more than 6 feet? Because I've heard that it can spread
Yeah.
farther.
Yes, well, you can imagine somebody's pushing harder, breathing hard. That's why the information about contact sports was not allowed. It's just the nature of it is just you're going to be breathing heavy, and the force of it's going to come out farther than a normal breath. So we don't have a guidance that's different than for that. We've used a rule of 6 foot, but certainly 6 foot's the minimum. If you can be 10 feet away from somebody who is exerting themselves, you're probably better off. It's a good question.
Any other questions from the committee? Staff like to?
Dale, could you speak really quick to the comments that people have made about the sun and chlorine killing
Oh,
the
sure,
virus?
sure. Well, the sun the virus isn't strong enough to withstand the sun. An article I was reading gave me the impression that an individual was thinking that going outside in some way helped kill it within them. And I didn't see enough of the article before I had something else happen, but that's certainly not the case. On a surface, it's going to kill it, and chlorine, a well-managed pool, will kill the virus. The bigger concern is still yet isn't, while we still are concerned about surface contact and all, it's the breathing. It's the fact that people are too close together, and that's what's resulting in the transmission.
But the chlorine in the sun does not kill the virus within you.
Right, no. If you drink the water, it's not getting to where it's your contamination in your lungs. So, no.
Okay.
If you did get that much chlorine in your lungs, you'd be in deep trouble.
That's something to avoid, drowning. So I guess if, I know that the decision is to maybe to just, and maybe I should just wait. Maybe I'll wait with the further comments and let you guys discuss a bit more. But I know that there were two options really, wait until June or consider now. So maybe there should be some discussion. I can sit down for a second if.
I'd like to hear from staff as to how you see our options.
Yes, so Karen is here, Karen Powers is here, our recreation manager who oversees the pool, so she can help answer any questions also. And also I forgot in the very beginning of the meeting, really quick, to introduce Marcus Allman. He's our new our Assistant Parks and Recreation. Sorry, I totally lost my train of thought.
Park and Rec guy.
Assistant Director of Parks, or of Community Services. So he starts today, so welcome. Marcus, sorry about that. So we'll get you introduced to everybody. Baptism by fire today. So we've talked a lot about, and that's what we've talked to all of our colleagues and professionals around the state about, as well as is how would people manage opening the pool and try to adhere to the 6-foot distancing when you know that children are running around playing, and what the guards are supposed to do. So right now at our pools, to be fully operational, we have a minimum of 10 guards, and then we have some office staff. So we have about 12 to 13 staff on at a time. Yes. Those staff are hired to watch the water. If you read through these guidelines, additional staffing would be needed in order to control patrons on the deck, and additional staffing would be needed for sanitation of different things. Most likely, we would have to have our water features and our slides closed and off, because otherwise we'd have to have a staff following every single person up the slide, cleaning off the handrails, as Dale had mentioned. So even limiting, one of the guidelines talks about limiting, if you limit the pool to attendance, to try to make it equitable for everybody. So it's very hard to make it an equitable opportunity for everybody in this community. And that's been one of the big concerns, is that the pools serve a lot of our underprivileged youth, which we totally understand. But they serve everybody, families to everybody. And many of those kids that are coming to the pool, are not supervised by a parent, so they need to be supervised by staff. Not everybody comes with their mom and dad, or a guardian or an older person to watch them. So it's difficult to open. That's why many of us were talking about as a group that phase 3, because that would mean that we are pretty much fully operational. We knew there would be some additional cleaning standards that we'd have to follow, and possibly some changes to our operations. But to open right now for this summer, at least by July 1st, we feel it would be very difficult to make it equitable, to make it, it's already not cost effective. So I put out a sheet that we were just supposed to put together. This is for our department in general. We were supposed to put a preview together of what we think our anticipated revenue losses are for this year and where our cost savings would be. And this, I know I gave to Mary Ann, so it's very, very preliminary. It's a draft. But you can see where our revenue losses are in our department wide. The city and the county both have revenue losses from sales tax, property tax, room tax. We're all going to be at a deficit. So my cost savings you'll see for expenditures is if we do not open the pools, that's a significant amount of cost saving to the city. If we do open the pools, our revenue will most likely not be what I show as a revenue. We make $108,000. That includes swimming lessons. I don't know how we would actually be able to offer swimming lessons this summer, even though that's the one area I really was hoping to figure out. But the more and more we talk about it, the only way to make it safe for our instructors would be give them some sort of a face shield. I've taught swimming lessons since I've been 14, and I know that every time a kid comes up after you teach them to swim, they come up and they spit in your face. Never thought of it being so gross before until just recently, but it is. The kids are exasperating, and they're trying, and it's constant water transmission. So unless we could have our instructors on the deck and the parents in the water with the kids, it's an option. It would limit our numbers because it makes it more crowded in the pool. It's a possibility, but I think it would be hard, and they wouldn't get as quality instruction if the swim instructors who know how to teach a stroke can't be in the water physically working with the children to teach them the proper way. So I don't think swimming lessons are possible this summer from my opinion. I think Karen and I have talked about it. I think safety-wise, it's a concern of our staff, would be very difficult. For the pool itself, I mean, there are measures we can put in place. We can reduce the number of people that are on there. We can add staff. That ultimately does change the bottom line. Our revenues, like I said, where I was going with that, our revenues would not be quite this high because we would be limiting participation. People they're not going to come. Some people right now, even though things are opening up, just still will not come. And our expenses are pretty much still going to be the same. Water costs the same, chemicals cost the same. There'll be a slight savings because we're going to open a couple weeks later if we'd open by July 1st, but it would be still a significant amount of that dollars as expenditures. And then it may even go up if we had to add additional staffing to enable to clean all surfaces and stuff like that. So as much as it pains me as a swimmer and as the Parks and Recreation Director trying to make this community a good place, I find it very, very difficult for us to be able to offer a safe swimming environment for our families and our staff. I think our staff are teenagers, majority of them are college students. You're asking them to monitor the actions of kids and of families. If there's conflicts, if people don't want to adhere to the 6-foot distancing, you're asking those younger staff to take that added burden onto them and to get into that conflict. We don't have full-time adult staff at all the pool. If we did that, it would be an additional cost as well. So, and I think we could wait till July 1st and see where we are, but if we don't know by mid-June and open by July 1st, I don't know that it's even worth putting the water in the pool for those couple of weeks, not knowing even where we're going to be as well. But we're bringing this to you as a decision. I've gotten in front of you. you will see a printout of, there's 19 different emails here. Sorry, one is not connected because it came in after we made the packet. Wanted to acknowledge that I got these emails from the public. Public comment is what their title was. Nobody's at the meeting tonight that sent me these emails, but, all of them, except for one, actually, except for two, all of them except for two, are very encouraging to open the pools. And we know they're a wonderful place for kids to be. They're safe. They bring up concerns of, kids going then to the lakes and the beaches where they're not guarded, which we understand. They talk about the chlorine and the sun killing it, and that's why I wanted Mr. Grothkers to mention that. But I do have two here also that urge to keep them closed until we feel that it's safe for our children to be here. And, people can make their own choices, but I think from where we're at, from organization, is we have staff that works at these pools, that we're putting these staff that are high school, college students into this position, that unless we can really keep them safe, we have that obligation as well as to our community. So that's my opinion, and I'll pass it on to the council.
Mr. Larson?
I think, and sitting here listening to things, this is just my humble opinion. Instead of talking ourselves out of this thing, we should talk ourselves into this thing. We have till July 1st. I think we owe it to the citizens, the tax-paying citizens who pay to use these facilities through their taxes, to figure out a way to safely do it, so these people that have responded to these emails have a safe in their pool environment to play in this summer.
Thank you. Ms. Powers, do you have any thoughts for us?
Come to the microphone.
Microphone?
I have an outdoor voice. I can use it.
I know. We need you recorded.
All right. Karen Powers, Recreation Superintendent. Thank you for this opportunity. My concern, not only for the staff, has already been expressed, but in the event of a contact at the pools that gets traced back, how would we trace those people? When people come to the pool, if you go out to dinner, you make a reservation, they have your name, they know they're coming at a certain time. Even when you do a meal pickup, you go there, you give them your name, you contact them. If we open to the public, are we going to take everyone's name when they come in and their contact information? And then what if that becomes a health record? What if there is a contact? What if someone does develop the virus and then they have to go back? Now, how are we maintaining this information? We're not HIPAA approved or HIPAA style of method of caring for this information. In the event of a contact, I'm understanding that if there was a contact at a business, it would have to close for 14 days? Not necessarily?
There's follow-up that occurs. Now I need to put my mask back on. There's follow-up that would occur. What they do is they assess who's been in closest contact and fits the requirements for having been a true contact. So in the scope of a pool, if, say, we've got 100 people there, not all 100 of those may be at risk. But you would certainly want to be talking with the family and parents and saying, okay, where was your child and who did they play with? And if you met up with some other family there, that was likely who your children were playing with. So then we'd outreach to them. And so if there is a way that the Parks Department maintains a list of who's in here, whether they have an ID or a tracking mechanism, who, when they left, that can be helpful, because ultimately part of it is the word gets out that somebody got called, and so other people now are anxious and concerned, well, what about my child was there that day? So it helps to be able to distinguish the times when people came or left. That's why I think it's interesting that Google and others are using this tracking mechanism so they can narrow down who may have been around somebody positive. Karen?
Could we not have a waiver? People sign a waiver when they come in to the pool? Say if they were to contact it here, we are not responsible? Something
That would
simple
be
like
something
that.
I'd run through legal, but I know if I saw a waiver, and speaking personally, if I saw a waiver that pool wasn't going to be responsible, I'd want to turn and go away, because I would personally feel like there's some risk here that hasn't been addressed, that is why there's the waiver. I understand the reasoning behind it, and, it's up to individuals to decide whether they come or choose not to.
Okay, we got about 5 minutes. Do you have anything else, Karen?
No.
Okay. Other
Mr. Chair?
than, yes,
Right here. Over here.
Mr. Neal.
Thanks. Well, it's kind of a heartbreaking consideration that we're undertaking here. And, emotionally, you might feel one way, but rationally you feel the other. I think that with the projected ongoing spread, that nobody's saying it's, going away other than, I think, maybe some foolish people, we can pretty much assume that anywhere we go, there's a pretty good chance of contact. If you're going to go out to eat, if you're going to go to a bar, if you're going to go shopping, there's a good chance of contact. We can assume that there's potential for vectoring in a pool situation. And whether or not a kid gets sick is not the point, because that kid can go infect and affect, people in their family, people in their neighborhood, anybody else they come into contact with. And knowing that that is likely the case, not knowing to what degree, but knowing that we cannot sit here and say, nah, it's not going to happen. I have to lean towards not having pools. And my only other thing is, and I know we're running out of time, is at the very least, to make this happen, we would have to have really ample staffing. And I think the only way we could do that is perhaps having one city pool for the summer. And that way we could really zero in on that pool as being the sole one that we are staffed up for, that we have procedures for, that we can really, be in control of to the best of our ability. And that might be the only compromise that I think is worth considering.
Thoughts on that, Ms. Polly? 1 minute or less?
Yeah, we've talked about all of our different options to try to figure out what could possibly work. I mean, we have tried, I think Karen and I have pretty much tried to talk about everything. It's a possibility, the question is always which one, because there was, always concern about my neighborhood pool and having which one open. None of them are, very large pools, so you still would have, capacities and issues like that. Really quick, I wanted to add that we have a spreadsheet going for the state of Wisconsin and who has pools open and who has already closed them. So some people are in the exact same stage we are as of today, so there's plenty like that. But of the people that have closed their pools for the summer, Baraboo, Madison Community Recreation, Holman, Oshkosh, Acadia, La Crosse, Kenosha, Montfort, which I'm not sure that is, and that is, and Melrose. Those communities have already made the decision to close their pools. I think after this week, we'll hear a lot more of whether they're opening or closing. But everybody's having the exact same discussion that we are today.
Do we have a drop dead date of June 1st or something to decide whether we're going to do this or not?
Well, we have to know by June 12th is the latest we'd know to be able to fill our pools, I would say even the week before, June 7th, to get our staffing trained and ready. We usually do a week of staffing, and then the pools have to be filled and balanced and all of that. The one big issue is we can't keep dragging our staff along. We have a couple of them already calling, saying they've got other jobs that they don't know if they should take, and, we're eventually going to lose staffing if we can't give them an answer. So I don't know that within 2 weeks here, the conversation's going to change from where we are now, and that's why, along with the counterparts that we've been talking to in Marshfield, Stevens Point, Merrill, we wanted to have this conversation now because they've already had it. They haven't decided to close yet either. They were based on the phase 3, so they will be having a follow-up conversation as to how they're going to proceed. But I don't know where I was going with that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Mr. Grosskirth, if somebody asked you if there's a reasonable chance we would be at phase 3 levels with this virus in mid-June, what would you tell them?
I would say if I had that crystal ball, I'd be very
Yeah.
valuable to a lot of people. It is very difficult for me to say, yes, we do. I think that the prognosis is probably not good. With increased testing that we've had, and testing, it's going to identify more individuals. And so I think that, I don't think we'll be at a phase 3 by
Unlikely.
June.
Okay,
No.
thank you. So,
And I'd say, this is a really unpopular discussion, decision. I credit you for having it.
thank you. I was hoping that there would be some kind of middle ground that we could go down with, let's have it hinge on reaching phase 3 levels, but I think that's pretty slim chances. So looks like somebody wants to make a motion to open a single pool, or just bull ahead and try them all, or shut her down. Mr. Killian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just prior to the motion, I'll keep it under 20 seconds. I know we have some time challenges.
We have
but
guests.
I do have a statement from Supervisor Harris, my counterpart for District 3 on the county board, as well as I received some citizen input with concerns about opening the pools. And given the time constraints, would it be possible to enter those into some record or the compilation after this meeting?
Yes, I can add those along with all of our other citizen comments that I've
Could be
gotten.
made part of the record, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Are there anything in there that you think the committee ought to know? I mean,
Well,
steer us one way or the other?
I think to exercise due caution on this and to put the safety of the citizens first. I don't know if that's doing justice to Supervisor Harris's statement, but the citizen input I did receive by email yesterday, that conveyed that the citizen would not feel comfortable taking her child to a pool should it reopen under these circumstances. That's the best summary I could provide of these communications right now. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Mayor, you have anything further?
I guess the only thing that I want to share is what I've been sharing about every single thing in every committee that we're talking about this, is that we have to rely on the science. I'm not an epidemiologist, I'm not a master of public health, so we have to rely on them for the guidance. I know it's horrible to have to consider this, and I guess, like, part of me would also like to leave open the door a tiny bit that maybe at the next meeting, it's June 1st, that we have more data. We have that giant testing event happening this week. It's possible that we learn more. I don't know how you feel about that. It's not ideal, but I do want to rely on the science. I think it's really important that we do so. We can't rely on our gut with this.
We could have a motion that would be effective in 10 days or something. But we do need a motion. We need to be out of here.
I will make the motion that we table this until our next meeting, and we'll see how things go, because see what the mayor says, see what the science says in 10 days. And I just, looking by all these people, and I just hate to close the door on this. I mean, it doesn't, no matter what decision we make, 50% of the people are going to be against it. So,
So that would be June 1? How practical is that for your operations?
We can bring it back June 1. I mean, we're just going to bring back additional data if we have it. That's the only thing further. I don't think I will have any more information for you as far as, our concerns or our, I mean, Karen and I can talk a little bit more. If it were one pool, how we would possibly do it and see if we have the options. Yeah, that's all I can really
Hold on
say.
to some hope. Is there a second to Alderman Larson's motion to delay the decision until our June 1 meeting? Mr. Neal? Any discussion on that? Motion to delay? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
aye.
It'd be aye from me. That passes unanimously, and that
Pardon
is-
me, Mr. Chair, that was not a unanimous
Oh,
vote.
okay, sorry, I thought everybody would, it's hard to tell. Are there any nays on that one?
Yes.
Very good. So it would pass 4-1. Thank you. And The staff, I'm sure, will be looking at potential of a single pool option or anything else we might manage to do, and this is a very agonizing decision for us all. Future agenda items, I think we can just say, let Jamie or me know, and we're going to meet again on June 1st, and today's meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.